Here's how you take advantage of Roam Minsitthar in Season 38. But first, let me share an EXP lane guide and laning tips on how to deal with the revamped Thamuz. Now don't be scared because you can easily win the early duel with the help of your passive. Notice that right after your passive triggers, a circle appears around the enemy. That's actually the passive cooldown indicator. Once it disappears, your passive is ready to trigger again. So simply back off for a bit, then jump back in once your passive is active again. You see, Thamuz is one of those heroes who rely heavily on their ultimate. Without it, they seem to become useless. That's why you can see we were able to take Thamuz down easily while still staying at full HP. And just like that, you've taken full control of the EXP lane. The moment he overextends, that's your chance to punish him. And this Thamuz right here will start questioning if he got revamped or secretly nerfed. And now, he's in a hurry to catch up with his minion waves, which makes him rush forward carelessly. That's when we set up the perfect ambush, cutting off his path and almost securing the takedown. But just as we're about to finish him off, their jungler arrives at the very last second, swooping in to save him and turning what could have been a clean pick into a missed opportunity. Eventually, I get taken down by the rest of his teammates, and Thamuz immediately takes advantage of the situation, farming the gold plates and even pushing down the turret. But of course, we'll make him pay for it. Then we confidently clear the waves, because anyone who dares to stand in the way of the king will be easily eliminated. And always position yourself so that your skill too can hit both enemies at once. Once you truly understand Minsitthar, you don't panic but you punish. And yes, one of the perfect combos is Minsitthar paired with Johnson. The synergy is solid. Johnson's ultimate sets up the perfect engage, and Minsitthar locks everyone down so they can't escape. However, since we're playing solo, it's pretty rare to randomly find a Johnson teammate who's willing to sync up. But if you've got a reliable duo partner, I highly recommend trying this combo out. Make sure to keep an eye on the map so you can plan ahead and choose your target in advance. But here's the problem. The enemies managed to wipe out our teammates, and now they're marching straight down mid, ready to end the game. You can even see Thamuz starting to brag, confident that this match is already theirs. But for those who don't know me yet, I'm Checkmate, and we've got another player who's about to be humbled. Now your job here is simple. Focus on clearing the card. That's your top priority. And you'll notice the enemies even start throwing emotes, already celebrating what they think is a guaranteed win. Yes, we got taken down in the process, but the important thing is, we successfully defended our base and kept the game alive. That's why it's time to take this game seriously. As Minsitthar, one of your biggest advantages is the element of surprise. You don't want enemies predicting where you'll come from. That's why you'll often see me keeping my distance. Now, some might say my positioning looks too far, but that's actually part of the plan. Remember, Minsitthar carries a 6.4-inch spear that can extend up to 9 inches when combined with flicker. Use that range wisely, and you'll be able to strike from unexpected angles, catching enemies completely off guard while staying safe until the perfect moment to engage. I didn't even bother using my flicker since the enemies were the ones voluntarily closing in. And we've got to commend our teammates for creating the perfect distraction, giving us the chance to land our hook perfectly. And just like that, we managed to win game 1. And going into game 2, we immediately showed Minsitthar. Then the enemy responded by picking Terizla, and I know a lot of you have been asking to see a Mincy versus Terizla matchup. So, I repeatedly requested a lane swap with our EXP laner, but he declined. That meant we were forced to run Minsitthar as a roam instead. Now for those who don't know yet, there's been a significant change to the roam role. But don't worry, you only need to remember 2 things. The first is this: whenever you manage to reveal enemies, you gain bonus EXP and gold. So here's the tip: after revealing them once, step out of their vision for a while, then visit them again. This way, you'll keep proccing the effect and earn additional EXP and gold over time. Then the second thing is this: whenever you help your teammates clear minion waves, you also gain a separate share of gold. But take note, your teammate still receives the full 100% value of the wave, while you earn extra gold on top. So here's tip number 2: always help clear minion waves when your teammates are nearby, but never solo clear. That way, you maximize the total gold your team can get. Unfortunately, the enemy manages to secure the first turtle, so we'll pause here for a moment and let's hop into some quick laning tips against glue. Now, during level 1, the key to laning against glue is to stay as close to him as possible. By doing this, you're preventing him from pulling off that annoying first skill combo he usually relies on. Instead of letting him dictate the lane, you're forcing him to play uncomfortably. The closer you stay, the harder it is for him to zone you out, and in return, he ends up eating tons of poke damage. You'll notice he's the one struggling, even forced to burn his vengeance just to survive the early trades. That's the kind of pressure you want to establish right from the start. After getting pressured, he tries to recover some HP by going for the crab, but of course, we don't let that happen. Then rush straight to level 4, because we're about to set up the EXP Gambit Rotation. And if you're wondering why I didn't bother helping out with the turtle earlier, it's mainly because our jungler is AFK. In fact, the one you see moving in the mini-map is just the bot taking over. So instead of wasting time forcing an impossible fight, I shifted my focus toward enabling our gold laner. He's our real win condition this match, and if we can snowball him early, that's our best shot at turning this game around. Even with an AFK teammate, we refuse to hit the resign button. Instead, we're back in the EXP lane, not to force a duel, but to focus on clearing minion waves. The reason is simple: we're preparing for the EXP Gambit Rotation again, and I'd recommend this rotation for 5-man teams, because doing an EXP Gambit in solo ranked can often cause confusion among your teammates. They might think you're abandoning your lane for no reason, which could lead to miscommunication. So here are some variations of this rotation. First up is the 3 pawns variation. The idea is simple: you make your mage, jungler, and roamer visible in your lane. Since 90% of the time, the enemy XP laner will report to their teammates that all of you are there, so their gold laner will be tricked into thinking he's safe. He'll likely let his guard down, assuming your entire team is focusing on EXP, when in reality, you're setting up for a strategic advantage towards him. And the second is the solo knight variation. Let your jungler farm the EXP and gold in your lane while you and your teammates focus on shutting down the enemy gold lane. Actually, there are plenty of variations to this gambit. You can send your mage alone to the EXP lane, or even your tank. It all depends on how you position your pieces on the board. And by the way, there are at least 3 prerequisites before doing the gambit. First, your hero should have the element of surprise. Second, a strong pick-off potential. And third, optional but very useful, is mobility. The gambit works much better if your hero has high mobility, like Benedetta or Cho. So if you're planning the gambit with Minsitthar, make sure to buy rapid boots first. Just look at our gold lane. The enemy is pressuring him, but what they don't know is that we're already here in the top lane. And I did make a small blunder though. It was supposed to be ultimate plus flicker, but I missed pressing the flicker. Luckily, we still managed to take down their mage. Now to answer this question, I want to emphasize that your main goal isn't to share resources with your gold laner, but to help him take down his lane opponent. That's why it's very important to return to your lane immediately after a successful takedown. And if possible, give the takedown to your gold laner so he can snowball much faster. And you've probably noticed how often I'm pulling off the gambit. But keep in mind, this doesn't doesn't apply to every game. You'll usually want to use this strategy if your lane opponent is tanky. However, be careful when facing EXP laners with high attack speed and push capabilities and who become scary once they get their core items like Zelone or Argus. In those cases, yes, you might succeed in disabling the enemy gold lane, but you'll end up having a problem dealing with a snowballing EXP laner later on in the game. So before you move, always triple check what can be the possible outcome or if you can manage the risk. I just want to commend my teammates for covering my lane while I was busy pulling off the EXP Gambit. And yes, if you've noticed, we actually have a Roam Farsa, which, at first glance, looks like pure trolling. Honestly, it might even be the reason why our Saber decided to abandon the game right from the start. But here's the thing, you can't control your teammates in the draft, and you definitely can't control their decisions once the game starts. What you can control is how you respond. As a solo player, your mindset should always be about adaptation. Instead of wasting energy blaming your teammates, start thinking of how to adjust your strategy. And look at that, we got taken down, but their Esmeralda jungler was eliminated as well. This right here is the kind of opportunity I was talking about earlier. Mobile Legends is a lot like chess. Even if you're losing in the early game, the moment the enemy commits a single blunder, you can flip the entire match and turn the game around. Now, finally going back to Roam Minsitthar, we couldn't hit level 4 right away, even though we managed to steal the enemy jungler's red buff. The reason was simple, our EXP laner was underperforming and ended up with the lowest gold on the team. But that's fine, because the moment we finally reached level 4, we immediately shifted our focus to the gold lane. And for those asking if I change my item build when I play Roam, the answer is no. I still stick to the Trinity build. The reason is simple, as a solo player, you need to be an all-in-one package. You have to set up plays, serve as a frontline, and still deal massive damage in case your damage dealers fall short. Honestly, I don't really recommend this build, but this is how I personally win in solo ranked games. I've tried going full tank for maximum frontline potential, but every time I do, I usually end up losing. And in this part I actually made a blunder. I missed my hook. It could have been a perfect setup too, since our mage was already in position to back me up. And by the way, don't be too afraid of YSS. He's very punishable in direct fights. What really makes him a threat is his global vision, because that gives his whole team constant awareness, and as Minsitthar you don't want that, because element of surprise is what makes Mincy really scary. Now our jungler is down, but that doesn't mean we just give this turtle away for free. Even without my ultimate, Minsitthar doesn't rely solely on King's Calling. We can still start with a hook and follow up with our second skill for solid damage. Now this Terizla right here is feeling way too confident. Lucky for him, we weren't the ones laning against him in the EXP lane. Even without their jungler, he still thinks no one can stop him. So we dropped our ultimate, and sure, he's tanky, but no one's tanky enough when they're completely surrounded. But we have to commend him because he actually managed to last quite a while. Imagine if his teammates had been there to back him up, that could have been a completely different outcome. It was a solid attempt, but in the end, he just didn't have the support from his teammates. Then we immediately rotated to destroy the mid lane, and not only that, we also managed to deny the purple buff from their jungler. This right here is one of the biggest advantages of building damage items. You don't always need backup from your teammates. And then, there's YSS. He went in way too aggressive, completely forgetting how easily he can be punished. Meanwhile, if you take a look at the bottom lane, our EXP laner is still struggling against Terizla, but we don't judge him too quickly. He might just be dealing with lag or connection issues. Even so, he's still holding his ground and even managed to secure some turret pushes, which is definitely commendable. Now as you can see, the last turtle is about to spawn. And if you've noticed, we don't really have a solid frontliner aside from our utility jungler. Their EXP laner, on the other hand, is doing a great job zoning out our damage dealers. At this point, it's already too late for us to frontline for our team, but that's fine. Instead, we go straight into their backline, making sure Terizla's zoning pressure is wasted. The enemies actually had a really good setup there, but they completely missed our conceal play right after YSS used his ultimate. And this is exactly why Minsitthar is so scary. He can instantly isolate enemies' main damage dealers and separate them from their frontline, completely turning the fight in our favor. This Terizla actually did his job well, soaking up a lot of damage and creating plays for his team. So in this case, don't hesitate to punish their frontliner. He contributes a lot in team fights. And since Terizla is naturally slow, Minsitthar can easily catch him. Now we bait the crab, and sure enough, YSS goes into farm it without realizing it's just a trap. He does manage to out-micro at first, but we don't panic. Our goal is to trigger our passive no matter what. He does manage to buy enough time for their gold laner to catch up, but they seem to forget that Minsithar's skill 2 grants damage reduction when facing enemies in the front. On top of that, with our decent attack speed, we're able to trigger our passive much faster. Now look at how far we are from the target, yet with Minsithar's full 9-inch spear range, we still manage to reach their jungler. Unfortunately for us, he gets lucky this time and barely survives. But not for long, because he's the only one left to defend their base. And our jungler then makes a smart move, acting as bait. Of course, the moment YSS sees this, he reacts quickly and tries to burst down our jungler, but that's another blunder for him because we can now land our hook easily. All I can say is, damage Roam Minsitthar is surprisingly solid, especially with a utility jungler and a tanky EXP laner. And since roamers now farm gold in this patch, damage Mincy can be really scary in the early.